today and move on to approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Welcome back, sir. Yes. All in favor? Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interests? Seeing none, may I have a motion to move into closed? No. What? Sorry. Oh, shall we sing the national anthem just for, yeah? All right. Let's move on to singing the national anthem. What? So we have no presentations, petitions, and/or delegations today. There's nobody in the audience for question period. So we're going to move into item 9.1, notice of motion given prior to meeting. This is a motion by myself regarding some additional support for Dufferin Board of Trade for them to put on a couple of events, Skilled Trades Night, and also to provide additional funding to update their website. Total value of this ask was $5,000 in each of 2 years, as per the chart shown with this motion. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm in general favor of this motion. However, in the therefore portion in number 2, I just wanted to ask a question in regards to the funding. I know it's very minor, the $10,000 over the 2 years, but is it you recommending it come out of the surplus, or had you discussed this with staff? Because I know $10,000 here, $10,000 there, it could start all adding up. I'm just wondering, why can't it be part of the regular budget discussion rather than dipping into that surplus?
Mr. Brennan? We did have a discussion about it.
Your Worship, through you, we just want to identify a source of the money. As the councillor correctly said, once you start going through a year and there's different initiatives coming in all the time, the 10,000 or the 15,000 can start adding up over time. So we just want to try to identify a funding source as we move forward for each one of those types of initiatives.
So I'm in favor of the first part. I'm not necessarily in favor of the second part, only because I'm just concerned about, like I say, dipping into the surplus when I can't see why a 5,000 can't be put in the budget.
The application deadline per the request, and that, it's unfortunate this couldn't wait until budget time, but in order to get into this rural economic development grant window, it closes on September the 9th. So in order for council to make that decision, we have to know where the money's coming from now rather than waiting until that time. So I guess that's part of the reason.
Okay, so in all possibilities, we could probably take 5,000 out of it, and then the following year have it budgeted for.
Right, I would.
In an operating budget. Perhaps the treasurer could answer my question. If we sort of put it in a queue right now that it come out of the 2018 surplus, can it actually be reallocated and be part of the 2020 budget somewhere else?
Madam Treasurer.
Through your worship to Councillor Sherwood. So if I may ask for some clarification of that question. So you're essentially saying if we take 5,000 out of 2018 surplus and readjust that with 2020 budget to recoup that money back into the surplus?
Right.
Is
Yes, yes.
we can definitely do it. It's a possibility, and so that's why we're looking for direction from council tonight.
Like I say, I know the amount seems really small, but I just worry about us dipping from now to the end of the year into the surplus. The next thing you know, it's gone.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And following Councillor Sherwood's point, I don't know how extensive the recruitment for additional funds has been. Again, this information we have, but I'm thinking about the post-secondary institutions. I'm thinking about the Home Builders Association. I mean, we have some prominent entities in this community who I believe who might be able to step up and provide some additional dollars. This way it reduces the allocation that council would have to approve from our budget for this event this year and also next year.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree. It was just it's kind of precipitous, this application request, and the request that came from Dufferin Board of Trade only 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Summertime being as it is, we certainly can reach out and probably get some partners going forward.
I think we might be
Councillor
able
Andrews,
to.
I would like to do that, right?
Okay.
And we've had some good success on some of our other events that we've been involved in with private sponsorship, so I think we can probably get some help there.
I do think it's a great idea, by the way. It's, trying to enhance the skilled trades in this community, and something like this will pay huge dividends, not only this year, next year, but years to come.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I guess for me, I too support the initiative. I have angst about the way we're going about these things. It's very similar to my fellow councillors. It feels to me like I'm a very rigid guy when it comes to the monies piece. I know I asked Mr. Brennan and his team to come back to us about what the criterion would be to give these grants. I wish it was part of that process, and believe me, I'll vote in favor of the initiative. I just want to say to my fellow councillors, at some point I think it's incumbent upon us, and I feel like we're all on the same page on this, so I'm not lecturing or trying to pester. I feel like it's incumbent upon us at some point to say no to these things. Somewhere along the line we're going to have to do that, and I wonder if we do it post-budget time, and that is say to everybody, we're done with this. This is the process. Make sure the public understands what the process is, and be more rigid in the way we're going about it, because it gives me angst to continuously dip, as per Councillor Sherwood has said. So, Your Worship, I am in great favor of the work done by DBOT, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, bringing it forward. So I'll vote in favor of the initiative. I think going forward, we need to have a common front.
Right. Agreed. My other thoughts were, this won't be the only ask, and are we going to make the decision that this is a once-a-year bucket that we have, or is there a chance to have some contingency funds available in case things come up that any of us might be interested in supporting? So that's something we can consider as the budget gets developed. But, I know, and again, I'm simplifying our budget, but, as a member of the Lions Club, I know we do put aside contingency funds because we know needs come up during the year and we want to be able to address them. So something we might want to think about. Okay, so that's the motion. Anybody seconded? Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any further comments? Call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Madam Secretary. Okay. All right. Now we're moving on to, this is our development charges bylaw. And do Do we have any comment or questions from council members here about this bylaw? I do see that the reduction in long-term care was incorporated, so thank you very much to everybody and the staff for putting that together. I also saw in there that additional residential units in existing buildings, that development charges don't have to be charged for those, and also in accessory buildings. So that would help those who want to do things like laneway suites, for instance. That I know that was a question that when I was talking to Mr. Ward, Brandon Ward, a couple of months ago, that he wasn't quite sure if development charges. But Mr. Jones, can I confirm, is that correct, that if a residential suite was put into an accessory building like above a garage, that development charge would not be applied? Is that correct?
I apologize, Your Worship, I don't have that information.
Okay. Mr. Brennan, you don't recall?
Your Worship, I do believe you are correct. I don't know if there's a square footage requirement over the totality of square footages of the building, but certainly at high level, you're correct.
Right. There is, yeah, I'm looking at 3.7. This is exemptions for intensification of existing housing. Notwithstanding, subsection 1B, development charge shall be collected if the total gross floor area of the additional unit or units is greater than the total gross floor area of the existing dwelling unit. So if you're adding on, there'll be a collection, but if you're creating 2 units, there wouldn't be. And also with respect to an accessory building, if you're not increasing the floor area, there would not be a development charge. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And this is actually a couple of questions based on some of the definitions, and not necessarily looking for clarity, but this is a question that's actually going to pose to the Treasury Department. And not to catch you off guard, but it's also a little bit of education for the members of council. If an institution decides to increase its size, then you're faced with what is called a bedhead tax. And could you maybe provide a little bit of explanation to council on what that really means? Because so if a institution decides to grow, double its size, you're not necessarily going to be imposed significant development charges, but you're going to be, in fact, imposed bedhead tax for every student that you have. So it does pose a bit of a challenge, but again, I didn't want to, throw something at you, but I just thought, as we're going through the definitions here, is that something that we might be able to provide some clarity today or at a future date?
Madam Treasurer.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Andrews, possibly at a future date. I
Okay.
just want to make sure I'm giving you the right information. I do understand the concept that you're asking for, but I want to make sure that I provide the right definition.
Well, I look forward to that. And
Thank
again, I understand, but the members of council may, just for curiosity, be to heads and beds. Yeah. And the other is mobile homes. Curious, do we have any mobile home activity in the community?
Mr. Jones, are you aware of any?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Andrews, I am not aware of any mobile home activity, no.
Okay, it was just, again, it was under the definitions, and it's there, and so I don't know. I know that Mayor Brown has talked a little bit about looking at alternative ways of supporting the needs of housing in our community. And again, not to say that we will end up having something like that ever presented to council, but at least we have the definition here, and just, again, out of curiosity, wanted to know if we had anything historically in the community. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further comments from councilors? Okay. May we have a motion to approve this bylaw? Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further comments? No? I'll call the vote. All in favor? It's passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. So that's it. Motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Brennan.
Your Worship, can we just clarify that the motion includes all 3 bylaws that are listed on the agenda?
Yes, we shall. So we have a bylaw to amend, bylaw 70-2014, with respect to development charges. This is the update to our development charge bylaw. And then a bylaw to establish development charges for townwide and area-specific services, and a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the Corporation of Town of Orangeville at a special council meeting held today, August 26, 2019. So just to confirm, let's have another vote on that. All in favor? Very good. Okay. And adjournment. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, Councillor Post, all in favor? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.